This is the last class of the weekend, and we're going to talk about a very, very important subject, which is how to overcome karma and how to work with that. I'm going to begin by reading a short quote from Yoganandaji about the law of karma to help us both bring his vibration in and also to perhaps understand the subject a little bit better. This is an article on what is karma. If we accept the principle of cause and effect in nature and of action and reaction in physics, how can we not believe that this natural law extends also to human beings? Do not humans too belong to the natural order? This is the law of karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. If you sow evil, you will reap evil in the form of suffering. And if you sow goodness, you will reap goodness in the form of inner joy. To understand karma, you must realize that thoughts are things. The very universe, in the final analysis, is composed not of matter, but of consciousness. Matter responds far more than most people realize to the power of thought, for willpower directs energy, and energy in turn acts upon matter. Matter indeed is energy. Every action, every thought, reaps its own corresponding rewards. Human suffering is not a sign of God's anger with mankind. It is a sign, rather, of man's ignorance of the divine law. The law is forever infallible in its workings. The soul is free. So there are several important points there. In another statement, Master said that we must realize that thought is a force just as electricity is a force, and that it's part of the natural order. So every time we have a thought, every time we say a word, every time we do an action, we create a pulse of energy. And because we do that, we think that thought, or say that word, or do that action with the sense of ego, because we carry that sense of I am this body and this personality. So that pulse of energy is then tied to the ego. And the ego doesn't pass when we leave this body. We carry that sense of I-ness with us. Now, in fact, Swami said, and this is important for deep meditation, he said, you will never, ever lose your sense of I am, but you will continually expand that sense of I am so that ultimately we will break the sense that I am confined to a body or a personality. And when we can break that, then we will expand. And there's a statement, when this I shall die, then I shall know who am I. And so that when that ego is broken or dissolved, then we actually finally find who we are. So the soul is eternal. The soul is a part of God. It's a spark of individualized consciousness of God. So that soul consciousness remains with us even after death. And if when we go to the astral plane, if we think that our astral body is who we are, which we will, until we can break that sense of confinement of I, then we will have still an ego. It'll just be an astral ego. And then when we come and re-inhabit this body, then we will have again the thought that I am this body and personality, and so we'll have not a physical ego, but the ego will be attached to the physical vehicle. that we're in. So it's that ego one can think of as kind of a magnetic central force. And because in the past our thoughts, actions, words have been tied to that ego, they're going to return to that ego. And so that pulse goes out, and then there's an equal opposite reaction, and that pulse comes back, not different in, one might say, vibration, but it might come back different in form. But Master said that the law of karma is exact. It's like spiritual mathematics. So that whatever impulse we've sent out, and with whatever strength, is going to return to us in a similar manner. So if we've been a person in the past who was angry, and we expressed angry thoughts, angry words, and angry actions, that impulse has gone out, and it's going to return to us in the form of somebody expressing to us angry words, angry thoughts, and angry actions. And one might think, if you're very ignorant, that this is God's way of punishing us for doing the wrong thing. No, it's not punishment. It's God's way of teaching us to get in tune with natural law. And so it's an exquisitely designed learning system. Master said that we come into this life, God creates this life, for our education and entertainment. And then he added wryly, but how few are either educated or entertained. And so one of the first ways to begin to overcome our karma is, as things happen to us, that's an exquisitely designed lesson plan. And it's designed to come to us in order for our ultimate alignment with natural law and attunement with God's power, God's creation, God's consciousness. Because as Master said, there isn't really any matter. As the physicists are saying, matter is really just energy. And some on the edge of physics are now saying, especially with quantum physics, which now physicists are finding that the natural order seems to respond to consciousness. 50 years ago, they would have argued with that. Now, most physicists will at least accept that matter and energy responds to consciousness. They're not ready yet to go the next step and to say that matter and energy is consciousness. But the yogis have long understood that everything is consciousness. And so, at any rate, coming back to karma, we send out an impulse, and that impulse returns to us. Now, it's not random, because as we continually act in a certain way, or think in a certain way, or speak in a certain way, we form kind of patterns of that. So if once in a while we get upset and say a harsh word, we don't form very much of a pattern. But if every day we wake up and the first thoughts we have are that we're angry at the world and upset with everybody's behavior, and if that thought pattern becomes very, very strong, then instead of a single thought just having a little bit of magnetism to draw things back, or a little bit of karma, we can call it, that repeated pattern has a lot of magnetism. And so the patterns that we have and have expressed in the past will begin to draw to us experiences. And those experiences, one can say, are karma. Now, I won't dwell on this very much, but it's helpful to understand that many things that happen aren't personal karma, they're mass karma. So the weather, for instance, it isn't your personal karma that it rained on your wedding day. Well, maybe it is on your wedding day. But take any random day, it isn't your personal karma that it rained on that day. But that mass karma is there, and yet, even though you can't control that, depending on how powerful your aura is, you might avoid some of that mass karma. So war, for instance, is mass karma. We know that we heard some very interesting stories. In 9/11 in America is known as the day that the planes crashed into the World Trade Center. We had 2 or 3 friends who worked in the World Trade Center. One of them decided when he got up that morning that he just didn't feel like going to work. And so he called in and said that he was taking a day, he was taking an illness day or a sick day, and he didn't go. And of course, most of the people who did go ended up being killed. So his aura was strong enough so that he was able to avoid that kind of mass karma. So there's an interplay between mass karma and individual karma, but we don't control mass karma. We didn't individually create the conditions that caused that event to happen. But individual karma, indeed, we created the conditions at some time in the past that caused that individual karma to come to us. So illness is an example of individual karma. People all around you can be getting ill, and if it's not your karma, you won't get that illness. Or vice versa, people all around you can be well, and if it's your karma, you will get an illness, and you may even get chronic illness. And so these patterns are, one could say, electromagnetic patterns that draw to us the exact lessons that we need in order to overcome our karma. We have a dear friend who was a companion of Swami Kriyananda's. When Swami was here in between 1958 and 1962, he spent 4 years in India, largely in Calcutta and then in Delhi. And this man was a good friend and kind of Swami's assistant at that time. He's a very entertaining man, Induban, for those who might happen to know his name. Anyway, he told us a story. He said, "Would you like to hear the most memorable lecture I ever attended?" And we said, "Well, of course, Indu. Yes, tell us." He said, "I had to pay," this was like 50 years ago. He had said, "I had to pay some to go to this lecture by this spiritual teacher. And so I was in the audience with a lot of others. So imagine being in the audience, and this is just one evening here. You've come for a lecture. And the teacher comes on the stage, and he says, 'Remember this. Everything that happens to you happens because it is preparing you for the next stage of your spiritual evolution.'" And walked off the stage. So everybody's sitting there a little stunned. 5 minutes later, he comes on stage again, and he says, "Remember this. Everything that happens to you happens because it is preparing you for your next spiritual step." Walks off the stage again. 5 minutes later, he comes on, says the same thing, walks off. That's the end of the lecture. So that was a powerful lecture because Indu remembered it 50 years later. I doubt that any of you are going to be able to repeat word for word this lecture 50 years from now. So maybe I ought to just say, "Ta-da!" and leave it at that and let you figure out the law of karma from that. But I won't. Foolishly, probably. Actually, part of Devi's and my karma, we had a reading, and in this reading, the reader, it was a nadi reading for those of you who are familiar. And in that reading, it said, in your previous lives, you have been teachers, and you've been together. So Devi and I have been together for many lifetimes. Anyway, he said, in your past lifetime, you completed the karma of teaching through writing. But in this lifetime, you have to complete your karma of teaching through lecturing. So that's why I'm up here and can't just say tada and walk off. So at any rate, coming back to the theme of karma, we will draw to us exactly those experiences that we need for our spiritual evolution. And so the first thing, if we're talking about overcoming karma, is to accept our lessons. You know, it's simple to understand this in terms of skills. So if you're trying to learn how to play the piano, and the teacher gives you some finger exercises, you don't say, oh, why me? Oh, poor me. I don't want that. And I'm not going to do that. And if you don't do it, then you don't learn to play the piano. Your karma gives you finger exercises or brain exercises. And if you resist those, all you do is continue the pattern of being out of tune with the natural law or the law of God in that particular arena. So you may be, you can't avoid the karma, because remember, it's tied to your sense of who you are, and it's got to return to you, and it's coming to you specifically to help you understand where you have made actions, thoughts, and words that are out of tune with natural law, out of tune, let's call it out of tune with divine law. And so if you resist what's coming to you, if you say, no, I don't want that, then you simply push that aside, and it will still come back, but it will come back stronger. There was a story of Lahiri Mahashaya walking with a disciple, and they had gone to the Ganges. This was in Varanasi, and they were walking home. And Lahiri said to the disciple, he said, tear off a little piece of cloth from your dhoti. And the disciple said, well, why? That seems a crazy thing to do. So Lahiri just let it go. And they walked about a block farther, and a brick fell off of the roof, hit Lahiri on the toe, and his toe started bleeding. And so he tore off a piece of cloth from his own dhoti and wrapped it up and tied it. Well, the disciple, first of all, was chagrined that he didn't follow what his guru asked him to do. But he asked the question, if you knew that was going to happen, why didn't you just step to the other side of the street and go on? And Lahiri said, it was my karma to have that happen. If I had avoided it, it would have simply come back in a stronger form later, because it would have come back with its original force, but also the added force of me having avoided and therefore resisted the lesson that was coming. Now, a great master like these masters, because they don't have an ego, they don't have the individual karma tied to an ego that doesn't exist, but they still have karma that comes back to them. And Master said that even a completely free master creates karma. A free master always creates good karma, and that good karma comes back, but he said because there's no ego to tie it to, then that good karma comes back and it is given to the devotees, to the disciples of that master. But it's interesting here because the teaching is a law of physics that when there's an impulse, that impulse goes out and it returns. So the first step is to accept what happens to you. Don't try to wiggle out of it. Try your best not to complain. If you do need to complain, at least realize that that isn't helping the situation, but get beyond the thought that God is being unfair or life is being unfair because of what happens to you. If you can, it's even better to be grateful for what happens. Because remember, whatever happens is clearing up some karmic pattern and preparing you for the next step in your spiritual evolution. And so everything that happens, good karma that happens, is pleasant. Bad karma that happens may seem unpleasant to our particular patterns of likes and dislikes, but by and large, negative things that happen to us are more freeing to us because they're clearing up some past or present misunderstanding. Which brings me to the next point. What is good karma and what is bad karma? Is good karma something that's pleasant and bad karma something that's unpleasant? Someone asked Swami Kriyananda this in a talk, and he gave an absolutely perfect answer. And this you should remember 50 years from now. So here's the definition of good karma and the definition of bad karma. Good karma is that which brings you closer to God, and bad karma is that which brings you farther away. So conditions are neutral. So karma doesn't attach to conditions. For instance, let's say you win the lottery and all of a sudden you have won, I don't know what it would be, and here you've won 500 crore and you have this enormous fortune. Is that good karma or bad karma? Neither. That is a neutral. Everything is neutral. It's how we react or whether that brings us closer to God or farther from God. Many, many people who have won lotteries and have acquired that rapid and seemingly undeserved reward, 5 or 10 years later, say, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Their children start using drugs. Their family becomes lazy. They get people who steal their money. All those negative things come to them. And others take that and they use it to help other people. And 5 or 10 years later say that it was a wonderful thing. It allowed me to do the things that I have been wanting to do. So conditions are neutral. It's how we react and what we do with them. And the definition of good karma is whatever comes, if it brings us closer to God, then it's good karma. That means that illness is neutral. But if you use an illness, especially a chronic illness, to bring you closer to God, then it's good karma that came to you. If you whine about it, if you say, God, you're the worst person in the world to give me this thing that I didn't deserve, and how can you make me suffer this way? Then it's bad karma. Because remember the funnel, if it contracts your consciousness, it's bad karma. If it expands your consciousness, it's good karma. But you have a choice in there of how to react. So if you react positively, it's good karma. negatively, it's bad. And I'll just end with just a couple of thoughts about how to overcome karma. First of all, realize that past karma is going to come, and it's going to come to you. But Swami Kriyananda used this example. If past karma is coming to you in this direction, and you are repeating the actions and the behavior that caused that, it's as if you're running toward that full speed, and the two of you are going to smack together. So that karma is going to hit you hard. If, however, you have learned your lesson and you're no longer wanting to repeat those patterns, you're now moving away from those patterns, then the karma is like this. And it may just tap you, and that's all you have. So the difference between this and this is whether you have gotten the memo that you need to change your patterns. And so the karma indeed will come, but the effect of the karma may be very much less. So what that says is act in harmony with natural law. Try to act correctly, try to speak and think correctly. And if you do, everything will improve in the future. And finally, I'll leave with this thought, that karma can be burnt up and is burnt up in contact with God. We teach in all the Kriya initiations, but this is true of any meditation, that meditation awakens karmic seeds which reside in the subtle spine. And those karmic seeds, if we meditate deeply and look into the light in the forehead is representative of the sun. And in fact, Master said that the sun is a symbol of the spiritual eye, as opposed to the other way around, that the spiritual eye is a symbol of the sun. Why? Because everything is consciousness. This is more conscious than the sun, so this is more true than the sun. Nonetheless, the light in the spiritual eye, after the practice of meditation or pranayama, the seeds of karma in the subtle spine will move upward and evolve and be burned up in the light of the spiritual eye. Now that's the true fire ceremony. We're, after the end of the class, going to do a symbolic fire ceremony. We're going to go outside and we'll take seeds of rice and throw them into a fire. But understand that this is a symbol of what happens in meditation, that those seeds of past karma are burnt up in the fire of deep concentration here. As we go closer and closer to the consciousness of God in deep meditation, when we're in the consciousness of God, we are in perfect alignment with natural law. And in that perfect alignment with natural law, this past karma doesn't have to correct us anymore. Isn't that a simple understanding? So the closer we are to union with God, the more we want that, the less effect past karma will have on us. And I'll just end by saying a quote from Master, which applies to everyone here. So where are you on the whole scale of karmic testing and so on? Master said to a disciple who was kind of moody, he said, remember this, it takes very, 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 very good karma to even want to know God. And everybody sitting in this room has very, 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 very good karma, because wanting to know God, wanting spiritual liberation, means that you're very close to that goal. And in that, we become perfectly aligned with natural law, and therefore karma has no effect on us.
Well, good morning, everyone. I just want to take a moment, I feel it's in the rightness of things, to thank the people that facilitated this whole weekend, and that's Devendra, Vineet, and many of the monks. And thank all of our teachers who have presented, and let's inwardly send thanks to the marvelous staff at this facility. And then I also want to thank each of you. You have brought great sincerity, receptivity, and depth to this weekend. And I think our collective aspiration, this can be a turning point for all of our lives. And I'm just very grateful to have been a part of this experience with each of you. Now, let's see. Okay, I'll start. Yesterday, some of the staff here, our own people, have been taking care of the children while we've been able, so the parents could come to the classes. And yesterday at dinner, this beautiful little group of children came. Some of us were together at the table, and they gave us this little booklet that Shamini and Surya had helped them to make. And it's called Feelings in Color. And I want to read, they're all lovely and colored, and they printed the different thoughts. Okay, like here's one that I'm going to read. It's hard to see. But this one was from Kushi, the daughter of Dr. Amar and Mansi. And so it really leads into the talk. This isn't random. I'm not just trying to divert you. God forbid. Okay. So this is, Kushi wrote this. Love is God for me because he helps me in every mistake. And then this is from Salil and Meganed. Your daughter is Sarah? Yeah, Sarah wrote this. I was very, very touched. Love is accepting someone for who they are. It's a lot of wisdom for a young girl. It's a very good way to begin the talk of karma, because we've been talking these last days, where this is the last discourse we'll have in this weekend. And on Monday we talked about how to live dharmically, how to find integrity. What are things that can guide us in this path of dharma? And yesterday we spoke about how to find happiness and success by not the way the world sees it, but from turning our consciousness within. But what stops us from having success, happiness, a dharmic life? Because who doesn't want to be happy? Who doesn't want to have a success? Who doesn't want to live in a proper way? But what stops us? It's our past karma. And it clouds the mind. And it confuses the heart. And we think, oh, I'm so in love with this woman, and forget about other dharmas that I have, and off we go. And then the suffering that comes. And remember, Master said, we quoted this yesterday, that the law of life is this: the more we live in harmony with the truth within us, the more we experience unending happiness. And so to experience that unending happiness, we need to look at the things that are thwarting our higher aspirations, that are thwarting us in the way we really want to live. And this is our past karma. And just as we read those quotes, God loves us even when we make mistakes. When we do act out of integrity, you think God is chortling and saying, ha ha, we got that one. God is crying. He is crying for us because he knows the suffering. I remember once, some years ago, there was a young man who lived at Ananda village, and he had mixed karma. He had some good spiritual karma, but he was very, very drawn to the glamour of the world, sort of like Kumar in Autobiography of a Yogi, if you remember, in Sri Yukteswar's ashram. And eventually he told Swami, I'm going to leave. And none of us were really surprised because we had seen the pattern of very mixed karma. But I said to Swamiji, and it was not a wise thing to say, I said, well, Swamiji, maybe he just has to learn his lessons in the world now. Maybe it's better. And he really responded with strength. He said, how can you say it's better? Swami said, I cried all night when he left because I knew the suffering he would have in that life, this lifetime. And so it's proved to be. And so God doesn't rejoice when we make mistakes. He's on our side. He accepts our mistakes. He loves us even if we make mistakes. But we still, that's not enough. We have to find the way out. Because otherwise it's, as Master said, the anguishing monotony of playing out karma, lifetime after lifetime. And finally, we get to the point where we just say, stop. I'll tell you a little personal story because it takes stubbornness to stay on the spiritual path. It takes the ability to say, I'm not going anywhere, no matter how hard it pulls me. When I was in college, you could earn a little extra money by being a subject in psychological experiments. I mean, they weren't terrible experiments, but it wasn't like brainwashing. But so I would earn a little extra money this way. In one experiment, they put you in this totally dark room, and there was one little point of light. And that was the only point of reference. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And they said, okay, tell us which way that light, they were in, another room watching me. And they said, tell us where the light is moving, which way the light is moving. And I held my thumb up and I could tell. My thumb I could feel was steady, and I could see that that point of light wasn't moving in reference to my thumb. And I said, it's not moving. And they said, no, they kept telling me, you have to tell us which way it's moving. This went on for quite a long time, until finally I said, I don't care if you never let me out of this room, that point of light is not moving. And so that tells you a little bit about me. And in fact, it was not moving. The experiment was to see if they could influence you by telling you it was moving. And they were very frustrated with my experiment. They very grudgingly gave me $10 and sent me on my way. But to overcome karma, we have to really want to get out. And so here are some things I'd like to share with you about how to tune in sensitively to what karma you need to work out, and how to do it, what are some techniques, and then the importance of the guru-disciple relationship in working out our karma. So first of all, to overcome karma, we have to be aware of it. So often you'll hear people say, I had this person I couldn't get along with at work, and I quit that job, and now in my new job, there's 2 people just like that one. Well, why is that? It's because that, as Jyotish was saying, you avoid the karma, and it hits you double. And so if there are repeated patterns in your life, look at them carefully and understand this is something you are supposed to deal with, to work out. I draw people that are angry wherever I go. Maybe you find that's true. And as Jyotish was saying, what is it in you that's drawing that situation? And once, with that simple thought, you can change your life. And you can thwart the effects of past karma and live a life that's happy and fulfilling with that simple thought. What am I supposed to learn here? And then you start unraveling the karma. Once you start being aware of it, maybe it's angry people wherever you go. If you practice meditation, I have done this with some success, try to sit in meditation and feel, if you are aware, we had a wonderful class about the chakras, feel where in your spine you are reacting. Where does the tension, where's the knot? If you're always being hurt by people, is there emotional weakness in your heart? If you're always getting angry, is there tension in the heart chakra? Is there tension in the Manipur chakra? If you're anxious and insecure and thinking, oh, how am I going to pay my bills, even though there's really nothing to worry about, there's probably tension in the Muladhara chakra. That's where these energy vortices, past karma, as we know, exist in the form of whirlpools of energy. And if you know what to look for, where does that anger, where does it reside within me? Where does that fear of that other person, that they're going to bully me or take advantage of me, where does it reside within me? And then try to release that. You know, there's the exercise in meditation where you visualize a chakra as a closed, downturned lotus, and then you relax and send energy there and light, and that lotus turns upright and opens. Try to feel where in your inner spine the seeds of karma, past bad karma, are lodged, and through Kriya Yoga, through meditation, but also through consciously relaxing and opening that energy up to the light, offering it to the spiritual eye and releasing it. It's a marvelous thing. It can short circuit much, much suffering on the outward level. These techniques are given to us. Master said, my teachings, this path that I bring you is the jet airplane path to God. And it truly is. And so be aware of those points and release them. Also, we're taught that these Master teaches us, these vortices of energy, how do they influence our behavior? Because how bad is a little vortex of energy? But what it does is it prompts the thoughts and actions from the subconscious mind. We have 3 levels of consciousness, Master teaches us. The superconscious mind, which is our higher nature, our soul nature, intuitive perception, draws inspiration. There's the conscious mind, which is the rational decision-making mind. But the subconscious mind is always whispering to us. You'll walk into a room and you'll see someone's face and you don't know why, but you really like that person. Or you really don't like that person. That's the subconscious mind that's prompting your thoughts. And we think, oh, I have free will, I make my own decisions. Much, much less than we realize. The subconscious mind is influenced by these past seeds of karma, and it directs our behavior, and then you find, why did I do that? Why did I say that to that person? Because the subconscious mind is acting on it. So again, when you start to be aware of what karmic patterns you need to work through in this lifetime, realize that Master talked about innate subconscious weaknesses. That's past karma. And he said when you recognize an innate subconscious weakness, he said there is an affirmation you can do. When you feel, let's say there's a person that always makes you feel anxious and diminished, like you're always on the defensive with that person, some bad karma from the past. You probably put that person down in a past life. Remember that. So when you're feeling that, try to feel where it is in your subtle spine. Bring it up to the spiritual eye. Let the subconscious transcend the subconscious mind. And then Master gave us this affirmation. My Father and I are one. My Father, meaning the Heavenly Father. My Father and I are one. You will find this dissolves the intensity of that karma. It breaks the hold that it has on you. And you'll find things that had bothered you for years. That's all of a sudden, why did that bother me so much? What was so important about that? And so these are to work with awareness of what patterns you're working on. And then we have to work with willpower. Jyotish spoke of if the karma is coming, if you run towards it, kaboom. But if you start moving the other direction, and if you start moving in the other direction very quickly, maybe it can't even catch you. But it takes willpower. So again, become aware of the karma. Is this intense karma? Is it a big karma? What does that mean? You have to put out more energy to overcome it. However intense the karma is, you have to put out more energy. Swami gave the illustration once of bad karma. If we think of a graph and there's a curve going, let's say I'll do it your way, curve going this way, to overcome that karma, you have to put out that much more energy to blast through the hold it has on you. That takes determination, stubbornness, willpower, desire to overcome the karma. It won't happen by itself. Karma is not overcome by passivity. It's overcome by determination and strength. And so whatever karma you have, feel how intense is that. And try to subtly feel how much more energy do I need to put out. And if it's a big, and some of us have, I think probably each of us have, a major karmic life test. Some of it, okay, I eat too much chikis or something like that, but that's not big karma. But big karma are things that are keeping you from knowing God, keeping you from finding happiness. How much energy do I need to put out? How much concentration? Take it seriously. It's not a little thing. It's what's standing between you and happiness. It's what's standing between you and spiritual awakening. And so putting out more energy than the karma of that thing, of that, the energy of that karma. And also remember, Swami said, the funny thing with karma is, it's like a nail in a board. I don't know if any of you have ever done this. I must say in America we use tools. The common man uses tools a lot more than I see happening in India. But if there's a nail sticking out of a board, you can use a hammer and try to pull that nail out. You don't know how deep the nail is in the board. And so if you just say, oh, it's so deep, it's impossible, I'll never get it out. But it could be in just a teeny, teeny bit. And if you make the effort, boom, it's done. And so we don't know the extent of our karma and how close we are to finishing it. Could be very close. And I'll also share this advice with you from our guru. Oftentimes, when you are just about to finish up some bad karma, it gets worse. And you're trying to overcome it, and it gets worse. And you think, oh my God, no matter what I do, I can't break through. But try to remember, if you are working on that karma and it seems to be getting worse, you're close to the end. And don't get discouraged. Pull that nail all the way out of the board, and you'll be free of it forever. And then we come also, finally, to the grace of the Guru in overcoming karma. And in a sense, we leave this to last, but it's the most important. Once I said, some early days of Ananda, I was having some difficulty, and I tried everything I knew how to overcome it, some karmic test I was going through. And I meditated more, and I prayed more, and I did affirmations more, and I concentrated more on it, but nothing seemed to help. And then finally, I didn't intentionally want to talk to Swami about it, but he was coming out of a building, It was actually the building Jyotish was talking about with the double-sloped roof, the publications building at that time. And I just happened to be there. And I said, I was on the path maybe 2 years at the time. And I said, Swamiji, I don't know what else to do. I can't seem to overcome this karma. And he was so sweet. He just patted me on the head and he said, oh, these things are ultimately just God's grace. Don't worry about it. And so, but that doesn't refute everything we've been talking about it. Because how do we draw the grace that ultimately takes the karma away? We draw it by our sincere, constant, devoted effort. And that's what draws the grace of the Guru. And there are so many stories, of course, we read in autobiography and in Swami's teachings of the Guru taking the disciple's karma, Babaji touching the disciple with a burning brand, burning log, and making a little burn on his arm, and Lahiri objecting, Sir, how cruel. And Babaji looking and saying, would you rather see him be burned to death as his karma dictates? And so the Guru gives, remember, the Guru can take huge amounts of our karma. When, if you recall, the other day we spoke of this man, the doctor at Ananda Village, Dr. Peter. He had a wonderful dream once, which he shared, and Swami said that was a super conscious dream. And in the dream, he was walking along a beach, and he was carrying a little plastic bucket and a little plastic shovel. And he came upon this huge mound, much, much taller than he was and wide, of this tarry black material, sticky and filled with rocks and debris. And he realized this was his past karma. And what tools did he have? At his little plastic bucket and his little plastic shovel. And he went and he was trying to knock off a piece of that karma, and he got a little chunk of it and he put it in the bucket. And he just kept trying, and he was thinking, this is going to take a long time. And then he heard a noise behind the this huge mound. And he went around behind, and there was Master Yogananda Ji Gurudeva in a huge tractor. And he was lifting up huge shovelfuls of this black tar and throwing it into the ocean. And Peter told that dream to Swami, and he said, that's the way it is. We do our little part, but the Guru's behind the scenes taking huge amounts. And so attunement with the Guru, sincere self-offering to the Guru, just saying, Master, I will give it everything I've got, but I know without your grace that my heartfelt desires will never be fulfilled. And as we deepen our Guru-disciple relationship, what happens? The sense of ego, of separation, begins to, that the borders begin to get a little more less defined. It's like a bubble. At first it's more like a hard rock, the definition of our ego. But then through meditation, self-offering, service, Guru's grace, it becomes more like a transparent bubble. And someone once asked Jyotish, does Swami Kriyananda have any ego? He said, well, it's like a big bubble that just keeps getting bigger and bigger. If you just touch it, oh, there's nothing there. And so we too can become more and more free of the confining boundaries of the ego. And as we do that, the karma doesn't have any place to land. It may still come, but it just, there's nothing for it to adhere to. And so ultimately, Swami said he met a sadhu in India some years ago, and he had spent many, many years in solitary meditation, and he only had one word that he would say. When you'd ask him a question, he would just go, Guru, 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 Guru. And ultimately that is the only thing to say, because it's all, everything in our life comes from the grace of the Guru. And just as there is a divine law that we've been talking about throughout these classes, the Guru-disciple relationship is also God-ordained. It is not a random event. We are Master's children because we came from the same spark of light when he emerged and graced this world of shadows with his presence. And so I'd like just to close by sharing with you a poem of our Guru. And this is the way out of suffering, the door that opens for success and happiness and ultimate fulfillment. So this beautiful poem by our Guru called Breathe in Me. Breathe in me the way to love you, that I might learn to faultlessly love you. Pour in me the wisdom wine by which I become intoxicated with you. Whisper in my ears of silence the way to be with you always. Speak to my wandering senses and lead them back to your sanctuary within. Call the marauding mind and counsel it how to retrace its steps unto your home. Within your silent eyes, just look at me, and I will know where to find you. You may hide behind the ocean. You may hide behind delusions. You may hide behind life. You may hide behind dualities. You may hide behind theological conundrums. You may hide behind unanswered prayers. But you cannot hide behind my love, for in the mirroring light of my love, you are revealed. So that's Master's gift to you all.
I reminded Devi that our karma isn't finished yet. We'll take some questions and answers.
So we have one question that was submitted. How to have union of two spouses having opposite value systems?
Okay, you all heard how to have
Let's say it again.
how to have harmony or
Union of two spouses.
Union of two spouses having opposite value systems. Well, understand that you drew that spouse, and so there are answers and answers and layers within answers. Maybe you drew that spouse because in a past life you were lackadaisical about your spiritual life. I'm speaking from the viewpoint of you're the one who has the more spiritual aspirations, and your spouse perhaps has more worldly aspirations. So understand that you drew that spouse, and as I say, perhaps in a last lifetime or a previous one, you were lackadaisical about your spiritual aspirations. You didn't put much energy into them. And so the karma is trying to correct that in you. And so it's putting you up against, in very close, one might say, mortal combat with someone who has the worldly inclinations that you are trying to get away from. Therefore, you have to act strongly in order to preserve and increase your spiritual inclinations. So that's one level of it. So accept the fact that you're in that situation because it's your karma to be in that situation. Another level of it is, should you remain in that situation? This is a question that we often get asked. Well, that too depends. Swami gave this answer. He said that the highest duty is to seek God. And so if your spouse has different values, but is not preventing you from your desire to seek God, then you should remain in that relationship. But if your spouse is actively preventing you from your spiritual aspirations, then you have to consider which is your higher dharma to continue to. I'm talking about really preventing you from doing it. If it's just a little tension there, then work with that. But so it's almost like a spectrum that's there. If the karma is relatively light and you can work with it, then your duty is to do that. If it's such that you're absolutely prevented, you're put in a cave of materialism or a cage of materialism and prevented from even seeking God, then you have to decide what to do with that. But I'll give one cautionary tale. Master's most advanced disciple was someone named Rajasi Janakananda. He achieved freedom in this lifetime, but he drew the karma of having a wife and a family that was opposed to his spiritual inclinations. His wife was a little bit crazy, in fact. He would sometimes have to go into the bathroom and lock the door and meditate in the bathroom because it was the only, and he was a multimillionaire. So, it wasn't like there weren't other rooms. It was that, but he stayed married, and yet he did not waver in his determination to be Master's disciple and to go deep, deep, deep on the spiritual path. So you just have to work with these questions. There's no single answer, and just work with them.
I'll just add briefly, just as Sarah's little note that she wrote, love is accepting people as they are. And if you have a difficult spouse, if you're constantly thinking, I wish they were different, I wish they would change, why can't they be this way? Understand that reinforces it, the way they are. It's like they have to push back. But to say, no, I'm not going to change. I'm going to be this way. But if you just accept that person, appreciate them for what they have to give, for how they have built a life with you. Acceptance is the doorway through which people change. And judgment and rejection traps them in their own negative patterns. So accept them as they are. And accept your life as they are. No one can stop you from seeking God. And that if you say it's my partner's fault, that's just an excuse. You have to find your own way. And values, we knew a man once who came to talk with us, and he was a strong devotee, and his wife wasn't at all, and she was kind of threatened by the time he would spend in meditation. And one day she challenged him and she said, who do you love more, God or me? And the man very wisely said, because I love God, I can love you more. And that satisfied her and she stopped challenging him. So find a way to create harmony in your life and accept people as they are.
Thank you.
The people who asked yesterday.
Let's give others a chance. So actually there was someone from Chennai yesterday, Tulasi. Ma'am was there back.
Can we overcome our karma by surrendering all our actions to God in this lifetime? Even our past karma, can it be overcome?
That's a very good question. Can we overcome our past karma by surrendering all of our actions to God? yes and no. We can't overcome in the sense of completely dispensing with all that past karma. But we can stop, by complete surrender, we can stop creating any karma. And so Anandamoyi Ma gave a beautiful answer to that. She said, when you get to that stage, think of a fan. You've unplugged the plug from that fan. And it may still spin around for a minute or a few seconds, but it is no longer being driven. So complete surrender to God means you've pulled the plug. So you may still have a little past karma that you have to clean up. And Master said, in fact, that at that stage, sometimes an advanced person may incarnate in several bodies just to clean up all that past karma. Because what Master said is that it is not enough to realize in this lifetime that you are one with God. You have to go through all the past karma that you've had and realize, as Swami was fond of saying, that in that life when you were a pirate, that was God acting as a pirate through you. It wasn't you. And so you have to get eventually completely cleared of all delusion, and then that fan stops. And he said further that sometimes people at that very advanced stage will purposely hold on to a little bit of karma so that they have to return. And they do that because their compassion for the suffering of others is so strong that they want to return to help with that.
Share a story in response, Dr. Vani, to your question that I imagine many of you have heard it already, but it's one of my favorites. And this is the story of Chaitanya, the great saint here, Lord Chaitanya. And some of his disciples were gathered all around him. And one of them asked, Master, will I find God? And then everybody got interested, and Chaitanya said, you will find God in 2 lifetimes. And another one asked, when will I find God? You will find God in this lifetime. Another. And there was one disciple, very humble, in the back, but he was the one inwardly that everyone knew. He was the closest to the Guru because of his self-offering. And they were pushing him, ask, and he didn't want to, but finally they pushed him. And he went up and he said, Master, when will I find God? And Chaitanya said, you will find God in 100 lifetimes. And everyone gasped because they thought, how can this be? Everyone else 1 lifetime, 2 lifetimes. And then they looked around to commiserate, but this disciple was nowhere to be seen. He was out on the porch dancing in ecstasy. And they came out and they said, didn't you hear what the Master said? 100 lifetimes. And this disciple said, brothers, didn't you hear what the Master said? He said, I would find God. Who cares how many lifetimes? And so total self-offering is the quickest way to find God.
We have one more written question. If a person doesn't want to be a monk but serve as one with a life partner, then how should he or she choose their partner?
That's a very good one. I'm going to let Devi start at least.
Well, Master has a technique for drawing a true soul companion. And it's something to be taken seriously, because if you're a serious devotee, entering into a marriage can either be very helpful and accelerate your spiritual life, or it can be detrimental. So you want to take that step seriously. And Master gave an affirmation of how to draw your own soulmate, and he said to do this, I believe he said, for a year, morning and evening in meditation, Does someone know exactly the deep? 6 months. 6 months. Thank you, Jai. And essentially it's, we can give you the affirmation. I don't know it exactly. But it's essentially, Lord, by your perfect law, draw to me a soul companion that I can share my search for God with. And people have told me that when they have practiced it, it was very, very effective for them. So take it seriously if this is something you're wanting to do, and work with God. And then if you meet someone, hold it up into the light. Is this the right person? Can I tell a little story? It's not about you. It's not about you. This is a great story that Master tells. He had a disciple who wanted to marry, and he came to Master and said, "Oh, I was at a social function, and I met the most beautiful girl, and she's so sweet, and we were so compatible." And Master went into the spine and looked in the spiritual eye and said, "She's not the right one." And he said, "Oh, Master, you haven't met her yet. You don't know." And he said, "She's not the right one." But he didn't listen. He married this woman. It was all a facade. She was a very difficult person, and the marriage did not work. Time went by. The man healed. Again, he came to his guru, and he said, "Master, I was at a social function, and there was this woman there that she just kept following me around the whole night, and I wouldn't leave me alone, and she was very homely, and I was not at all interested in her." But Master stopped, went into the spiritual eye. "She's the one." And the man said, "Oh, please, Master, you were right last time. Don't be right this time." But he listened. He learned from his mistake, and it was a very, very happy marriage. So essentially what we're saying is, do the technique to draw a soulmate, but then ask the guru and try to intuitively feel his blessings on your choice.
But just, you probably, since you're a smart group, have figured out the inwardness of that. But the affirmation is creating a magnetic vortex so that where your energy is in drawing a soul companion that will help you find God. But if your energy is in creating a magnetic vortex so you draw a pretty or handsome spouse, or a rich spouse, or a spouse with good status, then that's the magnetic vortex. And then how can you expect that God is going to respond by giving you a spouse that is going to help you spiritually? So the most important thing here is to create the magnetic vortex deeply within your consciousness that says, I would like to draw a life companion that will help me in my desire to find God. And if that becomes powerful enough, the law of karma, the law of magnetism, guarantees that that's what will happen. So it again, as Master said, it's all consciousness and it's all divine law. So work on your own consciousness, and that working on your own consciousness creates the conditions to draw someone who's compatible to that.
How can we deal with the karma which comes by way of us being female or male?
Could you understand?
How can we deal with the karma which comes by way of us being female or male?
Okay, this is something. So the question is, how do we deal with the karma that comes with us being born in a female or male body? Well, the soul is neither. We can't identify so much, and the closer you come to God, the less and less you identify, I am a woman, I am a man. You just feel, I'm just a child of God, just the way you did when you were little. When you're very little, you don't think you're so much, you're a boy or a girl. You just play with your friends, and you have a nice time. And then we grow up, and the ego kicks in, and we think, oh, I'm different, I'm separate. But try in meditation. And we are born into a particular body because there are lessons to learn. That's simply the only thing about it. And so, but in your meditation, don't identify, I am this, I am that. Just say, I am God's light, that I am a soul, and I want to transcend all external self-identities.
Master also said that at night, when we go not into the dream state, but into deep sleep, he called that counterfeit samadhi. Counterfeit because we aren't aware, but he said in that state, we lose our identification of being a man or a woman or rich or poor, or all those egoic identifications. And we have to go into that state, he said, spiritually, because that's where we rest in God and are revivified. But we go into that state every night. And so the key here is to do those practices that help you to withdraw your identification from I am a man or I am a woman. Swami said that he used to laugh that when he was young, he would notice people coming out of a movie. He said a cowboy movie, where the manly man is there. And he said they came out and they were walking with a little bit of a swagger because they had absorbed that consciousness. So if we watch a lot of entertainment that emphasizes male-female differences and all the love interest and all of that, then we're going to increase that consciousness. So just pull back, try to watch or read more spiritual literature and pull back from that. But you can also consciously, in meditation, especially when the mind is deep, just try to say, Master, I am your child. I have no qualities whatsoever. I am simply a reflection of you, and I am one with you. Because God is both man and woman, and neither man nor woman. So, hope that helps some.